And now it's time for Matt's choice for Midnight Movie. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you. Well, I've kind of given a few hints as to what the what my midnight movie is in our discussion around Mystics in Bali. But obviously, with my first two picks for this show, they've been very much about choosing cherished and formative films for me. But for my midnight movie, I wanted to demonstrate that the intention of this show is not just to be about nostalgia for a long lost age of cinema. I think I can safely speak for both of us in saying that there are still incredible and amazing films that are being made and released each year, and which still have the capacity to surprise and delight and blow our minds. And one such film I've chosen as our midnight movie, it's Coralie Fargeat's The Substance from 2024. So we both saw this film together less than 6 months ago at the time of this recording. We saw it on a Sunday afternoon at the wonderful Curzon Soho Cinema on Shaftesbury Avenue in London. So technically it was actually a matinee performance that we went to see, but I honestly can't think of a more perfect midnight movie. At our screening, the entire crowd, ourselves included, winced, squirmed, gasped and laughed increasingly uncontrollably at the carnage that was taking place on the screen. So for those of you who don't know, The Substance stars Demi Moore as Elizabeth Sparkle. She's an Oscar-winning actress who has now become a fitness TV show host. So you immediately think of the career trajectory of, say, Jane Fonda in the 1980s. The film brilliantly opens and expertly introduces the character with a static overhead shot that shows the initial construction of Elizabeth's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the unveiling of the star, and then the passage of time as tourists pass across it. Food and litter get dropped on it. The star begins to crack and fade, and you hear passerby comments such as, "Who was she again?" and "Did she used to be an actress?" So it kind of perfectly sort of sets up the scene. So before you even get to meet Elizabeth.
And doesn't somebody drop their lunch on it as well?
Yeah, so you get like the splatter of ketchup, which is
exactly, which
appropriate
imagery.
Yeah. We get to see Elizabeth recording an episode of her fitness show, and we are then introduced to Dennis Quaid's Harvey, the slimy TV executive who oversees the show, who we quickly learn is planning on ditching Elizabeth as he wants to replace her with someone new, fresh and exciting. A fraught and bewildered Elizabeth then becomes involved in a car crash from which she emerges remarkably unscathed. But after being checked over by the doctor, a young male orderly slips her a USB stick with the words "The Substance" written on it, and a note which says, "It changed my life." Elizabeth lives in a huge isolated apartment in the Hollywood Hills, and once home she plays the USB stick and learns that the substance is one single injection which promises to unlock her DNA to create a younger, more beautiful, more perfect version of herself. The rule is simple: you have to share your life, 1 week for you, 1 week for the other you, a perfect balance of 7 days each. But you must remember, you are one, you can't escape from yourself. Intrigued, Elizabeth calls to place an order for the substance and is given an address, and a day or so later receives a code for a safety deposit box 503 that arrives in the post. The package she receives includes a set of tubes and packets labelled activator, stabiliser, food matrix and food other. There are also the instructions: you activate only once, you stabilise every day, you switch every 7 days without exception. And once again, there's the ominous message: remember, you are one. Following the injection, Elizabeth's younger, better, more perfect self is created and birthed in quite spectacular and gruesome fashion. This creation is called Sue, and she's played by Margaret Qualley. I don't want to really explain any more about the plot, so as not to spoil it for anyone who's not yet had the chance to see it. But as you can probably imagine, after an initial honeymoon period, rules get broken, and from this point on, things start to go truly batshit insane. And I loved every single bloody, gory and audacious moment of it. Simon, what are your thoughts on The Substance?
Well, as you've touched on, I saw it at the same time as you, and I remember. I mean, it's quite a long film, isn't it? Really, I mean, it's
about 2 hours and 20 minutes. Yeah.
2 hours and 20 minutes. So, I mean, you could say for a horror film that's quite a long running time. But I remember it felt like 90 minutes, and I felt like as part of the audience, we just all responded to it as one, and also very, very vivid memories of walking out into the street and it was still light, and your brain is just trying to make sense of what you've just seen.
I choose it as a midnight movie because I feel it's a perfect midnight movie.
Oh yes,
and the reaction of the crowd, was a midnight movie. And you're absolutely right. When we came out, you're thinking you've got to be walking out into the middle of the night. So it was quite a shock to walk out into a nice autumn day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think also, I mean, we saw it on a fantastic screen with amazing sound, and it's a modern movie. You know, it's up for Oscars and all the rest of it. I think it's a film that would play equally well on VHS in many ways. I think. Even with the sort of, the screen going up and down, sometimes where the tape's stretched, and the sound, the tape warping and the sound dropping in and out, you could watch it under any sort of circumstance and with any sort of medium, and I think you would get a really strong reaction and a really rewarding experience.
Well, like a lot of great films, it's a modern film, but you don't really know when it's set. It could be set at any time.
Yeah.
Apart from the use of like a USB stick or the basic story, it could be set in the 80s. It could have been a 70s movie.
Yeah.
It really does feel timeless.
No, it does, absolutely. And also, and this has been discussed by many critics and anyone that's seen the film. If you think about the sort of influences upon certain scenes within that film, I mean, obviously David Cronenberg is the most obvious, and he's the sort of king of that type of horror. But I mean, I remember watching it, I was just thinking of all these different films and directors coming into my mind. You're thinking of like early Peter Jackson, like with Brain Dead and possibly Bad Taste. You're thinking of stuff like Basket Case. You could mention 100 films.
Oh, it has an absolute love of horror cinema. I mean, the Cronenberg thing being a body horror film, it's obvious. But as you say, you reference Bad Taste, you're talking about Peter Jackson. I actually thought there was a lot of Kubrick. In the way that the film is framed, and you got these long tracking shots down stark corridors.
Yeah, it's got a sense of almost 2001 about it, I think.
Yeah.
Which sounds an odd comparison, but I think it's definitely there visually.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there's also a lot of Stephen King, particularly Carrie comes to mind, and and just a lot of throwback to classic horror and monster movies. I think really come through in the film.
It's quite interesting. Something that I noticed watching it again recently on Movie was if you compare the state of her apartment to the state of her body, and I'm talking about Demi Moore's character here, Elizabeth, they tend to, and I'm trying not to give anything away, but they tend to deteriorate at the same time.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice that with the first viewing so much, but it really stood out. And something else that stood out was, well, obviously male characters don't get an easy ride, and if you think about the themes in the film, rightly so. But Dennis Quaid, particularly with the prawn eating scene, is unbelievable.
Very early on, there is a lunch scene between Elizabeth and Dennis Quaid's Harvey. The scene, at a simple level, it is just a conversation between two people at a dinner table. But as you say, Dennis Quaid is chomping away on a bowl of skin-on prawns, and the framing, sound design and editing is just so incredible. It succeeds in being every bit as disgusting as any of the body horror that follows in the film. I think it was probably the scene that probably made me squirm the most.
Yeah, absolutely. It's horrible.
Absolutely horrible. Actually, it's hard to imagine the film without Dennis Quaid in it, but originally the role of Harvey was due to be played by Ray Liotta.
Oh, really?
But obviously, sadly, passed away before filming Cobain. But so it is just hard. It's hard to imagine. Yeah, I mean, Ray Liotta's had lots of incredibly iconic roles down the years, but it's hard to imagine anybody other than the Dennis Quaid inhabiting that role.
He owns it, doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean, there's also some really memorable supporting characters that I wanted to call out. Early on, there's a scene before she's even taken the substance where Elizabeth runs into an old school pal called Fred, who's played by Edward Hamilton Clark. Fred, he's just a really lovable, cute guy. He still thinks and tells Elizabeth that to him she's the most beautiful girl in the whole wide world. It's a really sweet character, and it kind of hints that there is a way out of the drama and the possibility of a happy ending for Elizabeth. The flip side of that is that there's another character called Oliver, played by Gore Adams. He's this awful neighbour who comes to Elizabeth's door to complain about the noise she's making, only to be confronted by Sue, to who he completely changes his tone and becomes incredibly and pathetically lecherous towards.
Yeah,
it's just full of these little wonderful characters who pop up.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about Demi Moore. I mean, she's been rightly acclaimed for giving an absolutely stunning and very brave performance. I also think this is a film where, after a great many notable performances in recent years, I think Margaret Qualley really and truly has fully arrived as a star.
Yeah.
But bizarrely, whereas Demi Moore has been rightly celebrated, it does feel like Margaret Qualley's been kind of overlooked. I think in the not really sort of picked up any kind of sort of award nominations.
No, that's a good point. Actually, I haven't either. No.
We talk about the all of the body horror in the film. We can't get away from discussing the fact that there is an incredible amount of nudity in this film.
Yes.
But the thing about it is, it's never presented in a titillating way. The whole film is a really arch satire on body standards and expectations, and it's perfectly in keeping with the body horror of the film. The nudity is there to make you feel uncomfortable and even guilty for looking at. And one final thing to mention is the ending. We really can't go into detail here, but suffice to say, it really is quite something. From what I've seen of the general reactions to the film, this might be the bit where some of the audience check out. But for me, it was truly amazing, and for me, I think it's what makes the film one for the ages.
Absolutely, yeah. It takes it to another level in many ways.
Yeah,
it's really good. Yeah.
So as I say, we're talking about a very new film here. It was only premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in May 2024. Yeah. It took part in the main competition, much like Kikujiro, our first film, and it did come away with Best Screenplay. I first became aware of it when I heard that it was drawing incredible audience reactions at Fright Fest in London during the summer. At the time of recording, it's grossed $77 million off of a production budget of $17.5 million.
So there's a whole host of Blu-rays released worldwide. So we've got the US, Canadian, German and UK releases put out by Mubi, and they're identical and they have exclusive featurettes. Uh-huh. The French release has an exclusive interview, and the Spanish release has a short and some differing exclusive extras. There's also a 4K release by Mubi in the US, Canada, Germany and the UK, and a French 4K by Metropolitan Films. And the extras are the same as the respective Blu-rays, so you're not kind of gaining anything by buying them, other than picture quality and sound, of course.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely, definitely one that everybody should go out and buy. And that is The Substance.